Keir Starmer has visited a military base in Scotland today with the Prime Minister of Norway. They've announced a defence pact to hunt Russian submarines in the North Atlantic. The so-called House Agreement is aimed at protecting crucial undersea cables, which are increasingly at threat. This comes after the Ministry of Defence said there has been a 30% rise in Russian vessels seen in UK waters over the past 2 years. Well, let's speak to Tim Ripley, editor of Defence Eye. Tim, good evening to you.
Evening, hello.
Let's have a little look at this agreement first then. The navies from the 2 NATO members will operate a fleet of British-built Type 26 frigates. Explain what that is and how this helps protect our undersea cables.
Well, that's the Royal Navy's main anti-submarine frigate. They're equipped with sonars that can detect submarines at dozens of miles distance. And the Norwegians are buying 5 of the same type of frigate. So the Royal Navy and the Royal Norwegian Navy are going to coordinate their activities to improve their submarine detection network across the North Sea, North Atlantic. So this is 2 allies working closely together and operating the same type of ship. So obviously that they can have, boost their cooperation and the effectiveness of their patrols.
And this is all about protecting, of course, UK waters, but also trying to stave off the threat of potential damage, cables and pipelines from Russian sabotage.
I mean, we've seen over the past couple of months, lots of what they call hybrid warfare across Europe. We've seen drone attacks. We've had some British people convicted of sabotage against Ukrainian-linked buildings and businesses in the UK. There's similar attacks across Europe. We've had the Russian spy ship, the Yantar, cruising around over underwater cables. So there is an air of concern. It's not quite panic, but it's definitely, people are worried that bad stuff could happen or is happening.
Certainly. We've heard about the spy ship, the Yantar, a couple of times this year already. Most recently, a couple of weeks ago, it was spotted lurking off the coast of Scotland last month, of course. Sailors on the vessel attempted to blind RAF pilots with lasers. So we know about the danger there. I mean, it's probably important to remind ourselves how crucial those undersea cables are. 99% of all internet data passes through them. If they were severed, that's going to cause mayhem, isn't it?
The problem, and also, of course, remember, Britain and Norway are both oil producing states that have considerable underwater infrastructure in the North Sea and the North Atlantic, and most of Britain's natural gas comes from Norway across pipelines that go across the North Sea. So obviously both nations are very, very concerned about anything that might interrupt that traffic. Remember, only 3 years ago, that gas pipeline under the Baltic was blown up by saboteurs. So this is a very saboteurs yet unknown who they actually were, but it's certainly something that people are very, very concerned about.
Yeah, look, with all that internet data passing through those cables, it would basically cause economic mayhem as well as lots of other ramifications as well. It's a threat to the UK economy, which makes this important money well spent in the eyes of the government, of course. Anything else that's part of this deal? I was reading about UK-built Stingray torpedoes as well. Royal Marines receiving training in Norway to fight in sub-zero conditions. What else is in here?
In the Norwegian newspapers, if you read them, they say Norway is going to buy a load of helicopters from Britain to keep our helicopter factory at Yeovil in business, which is obviously good news for the British economy. I mean, the British government haven't talked about it because they've got some internal process to follow. But in Norway, they're openly talking about buying Yeovil-made helicopters. The old Westland are now owned by Leonardo of Italy, but they're made in Somerset, so that's good news. And also in August, the Norwegians opted to buy 5 frigates, the Type 26 frigates, and also Britain and Norway are going to cooperate to build a new generation of drone operating ships that launch our own drones to monitor the underwater infrastructure. These are going to be built in Norway, but British companies will be involved in that work as well. So this is a twin-pronged strategy by the Prime Minister. Obviously, he's getting links to our allies, but he's also trying to boost British industry and boost jobs in Britain.
Yeah.
So that's a twin prong drive to boost physical security and economic security.
Yeah,
That's the
certainly.
theory of the government.
And a big indication of how our government, but other governments around Europe too, how seriously they are taking the threat of Russia. Thank you so much for being with us, Tim. Really appreciate it. Tim Ripley, who's the editor of Defence Eye. Great to have you with us. President Macron has warned against potential US betrayal of Ukraine. That's according to reports from German magazine Der Spiegel, who quoted a leaked note from a recent call between European leaders. The Russian President Vladimir Putin also gave an interview for an Indian news network last night where he said Donald Trump is acting in good faith, but that he's got his own agenda when it comes to ending this war. Well, let's speak to the former US ambassador to the EU, Anthony Gardner. Good evening to you, Anthony.
Good evening.
Embarrassing for Macron, possibly, but when you look at the readout of the call, and these are leaked notes rather than the official readout, I should make that clear. It seems that those concerns from President Macron are echoed by several other European leaders as well.
Well, I'm not surprised. It is embarrassing, but I think he's right. I mean, the first draft of the peace agreement was quite shocking for many of us. Shocking because it literally could have been written in Moscow because it crossed every red line possible from the Ukrainian side. It was very unbalanced. And then you had a leaked phone call between the U.S. negotiator, Witkoff, and a Kremlin official that pretty much confirmed that suspicion. So, yes, there's a possibility that Trump wants to get a deal literally at any price, that a durable, just peace is not his objective. His objective is to get peace so he can claim a Nobel Peace Prize.
Yeah, I mean, when we look at what was said in the call, Friedrich Merz, the German Chancellor, says they are playing games both with you and us. This is in a comment to Zelensky. Said the Ukrainian president had to be extremely careful in the coming days because, of course, during this week, this call was happened on Monday, I should say. We've seen Volodymyr Zelensky, haven't we, this week, be involved in lots of different negotiations. There are more set to take place today in Miami, I think it is, between Steve Witkoff and Ukraine's national security chief. I suppose this is a warning from other European leaders to Zelensky, but Zelensky's in a tough position here because in order for this to work, potentially, the only person who seems to be doing, well, at least he's getting involved in negotiations, he's pushing negotiations forward, is Donald Trump and the US administration.
That's right. And they have to be very careful because they cannot be perceived as dismissing the U.S. and President Trump's intervention here. That would be terrible. And we know that from the past many times, including that terrible meeting that Zelensky had in the Oval Office. He then recovered from that and praised Donald Trump repeatedly for his efforts to bring peace. We haven't seen the latest draft, by the way, that apparently is significantly more balanced, better than the first draft.
I don't think Russia likes it, Anthony, as far as I can tell from the reports anyway.
Yeah, but, I would take that with pounds of salt because Russia actually has to say that so they can pretend that they're being squeezed and agree to a deal, which in fact is to their benefit. They don't want to be seen as actually writing the text of these agreements. Donald Trump looks at just about everything as a commercial deal. This is no different. We saw that in the case of the minerals deal that was presented. Again, the first draft was unbelievably unbalanced, ended up being more balanced. But this is just another transaction. And my deep concern is that the Kremlin is quite rightly identified Trump's desire for commercial gain, and they are dangling in front of the president the supposed riches of re-entering the Russian market, not only for Trump and his family personally, but from the United States. So this could be just another commercial transaction.
Let's look at this from Volodymyr Zelensky's point of view. I mean, he's clearly had great words of support from his EU counterparts. Finland's Alexander Stubb, according to the transcript, says we cannot leave Ukraine and Vladimir alone with these guys referring to Witkoff and Kushner, which attracted agreement from Mark Rutte as well, the NATO Secretary General. From Volodymyr Zelensky's point of view, though, these are, encouraging words of support. But I wonder whether he takes them with a bit of a pinch of salt as well, because so far Europe has been very keen to encourage, but not necessarily to put all their financial might behind supporting Volodymyr Zelensky and Ukraine.
Well, you're right. There is unfortunately no perfect substitute for the United States, at least in terms of intelligence and surveillance and reconnaissance and air cover. Europe cannot do all of that. It has provided a lot of financial assistance. It provided also important military assistance, but it cannot substitute for the United States. Things are moving quickly. Now, finally, after months and months of dithering and delay on the sovereign Russian assets sitting in Brussels at Euroclear, it appears there's another text on the table that invokes the emergency powers and skirts the member states' veto to ensure that that money can end up in Kiev's hands, which would be very significant. We'll see what happens.
Lovely. Well, thank you so much for being with us. Really appreciate your time. And that is Anthony Gardner, who is former US ambassador to the EU.